We are going to jump in. I just want to say that I'm really excited for tonight's webinar, mostly because in our previous marketing webinars, a lot of times we talk about Google Ads or Facebook, and we don't really spend a lot of time on the content that you put into those channels. And so I think tonight's presentation will be interesting because it's from what I understand, and if not, we can, if I'm totally off, Jessica, you can do a totally different presentation a different day. But I'm hoping, that we'll find some insight in terms of the content creation because, you can't put the cart before the horse. We have to have something to put into those channels, right? So I'm excited about tonight's presentation, and we are sponsored by Blue Orchid Marketing tonight. So we have Sean Zakin with us with Blue Orchid. Blue Orchid is podiatry specific marketing organization, and they have the most years on file for podiatry specific experience. So we're super excited to have Blue Orchid on team podiatrymeetings.com, and Sean actually introduced us to Jessica. So I'm just really excited to learn and gain information because this is kind of my jam. So in the marketing space, so I'm going to silence myself and hide myself. And Sean, I'm going to let you take it away and introduce Jessica as you guys go way back.
Awesome. Thank you. First of all, pleased to be here. Glad to see that everyone has survived the eclipse. So congratulations and good on you. Sean Zakin from Blue Orchid Marketing. As Sarah mentioned, we are 23 years strong in podiatry marketing specifically. For anyone who doesn't know, I took over the business 2 years ago. So this is all kind of innovating, recreating, rethinking how podiatry looks for now and well into the future. In my previous career, I was actually a TV writer producer for almost 20 years out west, which is actually how I go back to the West Coast with Jessica, and even before that to Northwestern, where we both studied similar subjects together. When I started out in Hollywood, I very quickly deduced that you were only as talented as what Google had to say about you. And so right after I sold my first TV show to Fox, I went on a tear. I didn't have a publicist, and I was very focused on how do I get press? How can I get folks to care and write about what it is that I'm doing? Because I believed then, and I still believe now, that again, you're really only as good as your online reputation suggests. And so I went to great lengths to get that press, and fortunately was able to be one of the younger writers who had scored some great articles that were written about what I was doing, and since then have evolved, but continue to think about content creation in a unique way. I encourage us all to be innovators, to be creative and outside the box thinkers when it comes to how we present ourselves, perhaps thinking about ourselves as specialists instead of generalists. But anyway, I don't want to steal Jessica's thunder. She's a friend, a trusted ally, and a media expert. I'm thrilled to share the stage with you tonight, and take it away, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. And Sarah, sorry for making noise. It was me doubling up on audio because I logged in as a participant. So if questions pop up while I'm going or you need me to stop, and Sean, Sarah, anyone on the team, just feel free to interrupt me, or if you see an opportunity to throw a question at a certain point in the presentation, I want to make sure that I can hit on all of the things that will help you get press and nail it, which is why we are here tonight. So awesome to be back with you, Sean, and a little bit about my background. I spent more than 20 years working as, oh, I'm in the same sweater. Oh, look at that. It's like I'm, doubling up again today. It's everything in twos. So I spent 20 years working as a news anchor and news reporter and worked in different markets around the country. I have contributed to outlets like entrepreneur.com, Forbes.com, and currently host a show called Unfiltered with Jessica Abo for the Los Angeles Tribune. My book, Unfiltered: How to Be as Happy as You Look on Social Media, came out 6 years ago because my book and my daughter were due the same day. So that was a very fun race against time. And usually you will either hear giggles in the background or see people like coming in and out or walking behind me, but my husband took the kids to dinner. So we are by ourselves tonight. And I'm really excited to be with all of you because this is what I love to talk about all day, every day, to help folks like you get visibility and not just get a yes when you pitch yourself to the media or a publicist pitches you to the media or your internal PR person pitches you to the media, but what we really want to talk about tonight is how to nail those opportunities so that you can use them in your marketing, maximize your exposure, find ways to monetize those opportunities, and hopefully put more money in the bank, whether that is through corporate speaking opportunities, whether it's through brand partnerships, or it's simply having more patients know that you exist and know about you and your services. So when we talk about press, the first thing that I like to start by asking my clients is, why do you want press and what do you want that exposure to do? So even if we took me, for example, I have a program coming out in June. It's actually called From the ER to PR, and it's going to be my media training program for healthcare professionals. So for me, press is all about brand awareness. And what do I want that exposure to do? Just get my name out there more with medical associations and with potential clients. But there might be someone in this group who is trying to sell their practice. Maybe you're trying to start an app because you have some sort of product that you want to be able to help people with their foot health through technology. Maybe you are a co-owner of a practice, but you really want to start a health tech startup. So visibility can play lots of different roles. And I want to break down for you today some of the ways that you can be seeing yourself as a news story, because we already know you're worthy of all these opportunities. You are educated, you have experience, but I'm here tonight to help you identify some extra ways that you're newsworthy and figure out how you can be getting that TEDx, how you can be getting that book deal, or other ways for you to be monetizing your experience and your expertise. So a lot of the times people will come to me and they'll say, you know, I just want press for the sake of getting press, which is awesome. But if you can be thinking really thoughtfully about what you want that piece of press to do, then when we're talking about Sarah's line of this story, which is the marketing angle, you can be accomplishing what you want to accomplish from the beginning instead of trying to say to yourself, oh, if only a reporter would have asked me this, or if only I could have gotten into a story about that. It's all how you position yourself from the beginning. So how I start with everybody is going through this PR wheel. And of course you have breaking news, which might say, to you, okay, what's happening in the news today where my story can fit into this narrative? That's the exact question. That's exactly what I want you to be thinking about when you see breaking news and you think about your expertise. So if the president was walking today and he tripped and he broke his leg, or some study came out that was about foot health, these are ways that you can be guaranteed opportunities because national outlets and local reporters and your local newspaper and podcasters are all going to be talking about the news of the day. And if you can find a way for your story to be part of news of the day, that is one great way for you to be getting yourself visibility. So let's take, for example, when the war in Ukraine broke out. When people were pitching me stories at that time, whether it's for Entrepreneur or Forbes or other outlets, if they didn't have a tie to the war, it was really hard for me to keep track of all of the pitches that I was getting. So if you were the founder, let's say, of a foot product, and you sent me a pitch at that time, there was a good chance it was going to get lost in the shuffle. But if you said to me, I have this product and we know that the nurses and the doctors in Ukraine are on their feet 24 hours a day, and we just are sending shipments for free to the hospitals because we know that these people are being inundated and they need support, that's a great story, because I would have sent a crew, or I would have asked you for images of you gathering the product that you have and maybe get pictures of people on the other side opening up those boxes. And now you've taken something happening in the world and you've localized it to what you do. But then there's trending, right? And April is National Foot Health Awareness Month. And I know according to statistics that I think it's 20% of Americans have at least one foot problem. So this is a great time to be jumping on the trending bandwagon and to be pitching your local news and say, I'm a local podiatrist, or I wrote a book about this, or I have an app or a product, or I teach people, through my own online course, how to have better foot health, whatever it might be, and be able to simplify in a quick email. Long gone are the days of very long narratives that you would send to someone who might be interested in your story. It's a simple, dear Sean, I see you're the health reporter at KTLA. I wanted to put myself on your radar. April is National Foot Health Awareness Month. 20% of Americans have at least one foot health related issue. I would love to come on and talk about boom, boom, boom. And then you just let them know how they can get in touch with you. There's crisis management. So that doesn't need to be a crisis happening in your practice. It could be that there was some sort of product and maybe it's affected people's foot health in some way. And you, being a knowledgeable person in foot health, can be putting yourself out there to explain maybe what the problem was, how it could have been prevented, and what people like you do to educate your patients for them to make sure that this sort of health crisis doesn't affect them in the future. And then there's simple brand awareness. So you opened up a practice, you have that product, maybe a course, you've written a book. This is press for the sake of getting press. So more people know that you exist. Always a great way to be thinking about press for yourselves is simple brand awareness. The inspiring story is a little different than brand awareness, because the inspiring story might be you've run 50 marathons in 50 states, and you've done it in, the name of this foot charity, this foot cause, something that helps people get access to healthcare for their feet in underserved areas. Whatever the story might be, it could be something maybe that happened to you and your own feet that inspired you to take on this path in terms of your own education and your own career. But these are the contrast stories. So I had $200 in my pocket. Now I run a $2 million business. I was the janitor of the school. Now I'm the superintendent of the school district. Things that really showcase you as a full person do really, really well when it comes to news angles and pitches for podcasts, panels, keynotes, etc. And then there's the leader profile. Sean, I'll lean on you for this one. Is there a trade magazine in the industry where, someone even like you would want to get profiled? If so, this is a great place to pitch, because this is where a lot of your colleagues might be consuming content. But it's different than asking your patients where they consume their health-related news, because there might be a podcaster or a blogger or a social media influencer that you've never heard of that your patients are talking about time and time again. And it's just as effective to get on an Instagram Live or a LinkedIn Live with someone who is already speaking to your audience. So potentially to runners or to other athletes that depend on their feet, like all of us do, but maybe in different ways when it comes to foot related issues, maybe around marathon, time. If you're in New York, that would be in the fall. And if you're in other cities, then other times of the year. But getting positioned not only in areas where your colleagues and your peers can be looking at what you've accomplished, but also in places where your consumer is already spending time, is a great way to be thinking of yourself when you think about pitching in order to be profiled in that leader profile space. And then there's fundraising. Maybe you are pivoting out of healthcare, which so many people are these days as their full-time job, and you're leaning on your health tech startup or on your online courses. Maybe it's related to your book or something else, and you are doing some sort of I Fund Women campaign, Indiegogo campaign, Kickstarter, or good old fashioned money raising for like a seed round. So whether it's a seed round or an exit, money matters also are a great way to be thinking of yourself for a potential news story. And then you have all the financial outlets, and spending some time to see, well, who covers Kickstarter campaigns compared to exits and other things is another way that you can be thinking of yourself as you expand your your lens when it comes to ways that you can be having conversations with people who can learn more about you and the services that you provide. And then there's selling. So again, going back to that course, that product, that book, whether it's an app or anything else that you have in your wheelhouse, making sure that you are getting visibility around those launches is really important. But knowing that the story might not always be about the launch is also critical. So maybe for Mother's Day or Father's Day, your product would be an awesome gift for somebody. That is very different than getting a whole profile done about you and your very accomplished career. It's very different from someone profiling you and your inspiring story. And even going back to inspiring story for a second, it might even be inspiring stories from your patients, even if it's not about an inspiring story from your own personal life. But if you're selling something, making sure that that is incorporated is great, even if it's not the welcome to the news today. Today, we're talking with Sarah about how she is selling her new course and it's $97. Sarah, tell us about your course. Podcasts might have opportunities like that, but typically when it comes to the news, that's more of a, okay, Sarah, in the 10 seconds we have left, tell us where people can go to get more information about you or how they can work with you. And that's when Sarah says, I actually have an online course that you can get on my website, www.sarahhelpsyourfeet.com. And if you go check that out, you'll be on your way. So sometimes people make the mistake of saying, oh, no, I just want press around the very thing that I do. But there are a lot of really creative ways to get into the media game, and thinking about that is going to help you land opportunities beyond your competition because you're going to be thinking about it in this really expansive way. And then there's the tour. Maybe you're doing clinics, pop-up clinics around the country. Maybe you're doing a lecture around the country. Maybe you're already visiting medical schools or, different institutions, philanthropy and churches, whatever it might be on your speaking tour. This is a really great time to reach out to those cities in advance and be pitching yourself to those outlets where you might be able to go on the local radio station or on the local TV outlet and be able to take the same pitch that you've been pitching in your own community and make it nationwide. And then finally, the easiest category that's really, really popular when it comes to getting visibility and breaking through all the noise in the media landscape are those how-to stories. So how to take care of your feet in the winter, how to take care of your feet in the summer, what to do around different health-related issues or skin conditions or injuries, things that might pertain to your specialty. The how-to category is really important and can lend itself to many opportunities for you to be invited to speak for panels, keynotes, and other things. So I know I went through that super fast, but that just gives you a high-end look at what is possible when it comes to breaking down all of these different story angles for yourself. And a trick that I like to tell people is if you want to know how to find these opportunities in terms of where are people covering these kinds of stories, because so many people will say, okay, Jessica, like I could see myself in a couple of these categories, but I don't know where to start and I don't know who to pitch and where. Something that you can do is just put in the word, podiatry, foot health, whatever is connected to you and what you do. And when you go in that Google search, instead of clicking all, click the news tab, and you'll get to see some of the headlines related to podiatry that have been in the news lately, so that when you're emailing people, you can say like, dear so-and-so, I recently saw this piece that you did in the Boston Globe, and I would love to tell you that I'm a local podiatrist here in Boston and would love to have a conversation with you about, and then you simplify it, XYZ, so that we can help your readers be, foot healthy all year round or whatever it might be. Another thing is just to go on LinkedIn and Instagram and start following the people who write about foot health or health reporters at different outlets who might be interested in doing a future piece with you. And following their content today leads to liking their content tomorrow and engaging with their content over time and having you be a recognized name in their ecosystem so that when you do pitch them, they're like, oh, I recognize you from your comments, or thanks for sharing my work. There are a bunch of people who I profiled when I was writing my column for Forbes, simply because they commented and shared my work so often that I thought, I wonder who this person is. And I spent some time on their feed and then discovered that they were an entrepreneur. They were an expert in a field that I thought was really interesting. So you just never know where those relationships can take you. And real quickly, I just want to point out that the QR code in the corner has a PR calendar that my team and I spent a year making. And it has all of the awareness days that we could find, from Small Business Saturday to National Author Day. And you don't have to pitch yourself specifically around these times, but it really does help if you know when International Women's Day is, for you to pitch yourself as a female in this space in advance than pitching the day of or a day too late. So feel free to scan that and be aware of the different times of year popping up so that you can be creating and generating more social media content, and of course, be pitching yourself in advance so that you can be getting some of these media opportunities. Okay, so now the question comes down to, what do you do when you get a yes? How do you get prepared? So I like to start people with gotcha questions. The gotcha questions might be related to your practice and revenue. Maybe you used to work for a podiatrist who just got sentenced for committing a crime, which, by the way, before I jumped onto the Zoom, I actually went into my own Google search and I put in a few keywords and I clicked on the news tab, and there was a podiatrist who got in trouble for something not that long ago. So you might not be the person in trouble. You might not have done anything wrong in your field, but they might ask you a question if you are being, interviewed somewhere, and it's like this big story in your hometown, and you are a podiatrist in town, and you worry that they're going to ask you a question about this other person. The trick with gotcha questions is if you make a list of what you hope someone never asks you, and you come up with answers to those, even if no one ever asks you those questions, just having that content be content you have thought about, content you have practiced, and content you feel really good represents what you want to say and helps you get to the narrative that you're really trying to convey faster. That is going to boost your camera confidence. So if someone were to ask me a question about a newsroom that I worked in 10 years ago, I would have to think to myself, okay, how do I want to get out of this by acknowledging the question, not dodging it completely, but taking the conversation to where I want to go? And that's what we call pivoting. So the sooner you can think about the questions you hope no one ever asks you, the better you will be at interviews in general, because you will have already given some thought to what to say and how to say it so that you can take the conversation where you really want it to go. And then if you go on and on, my ramblers, I always like to say for this, the only rambling we like in life is a rambling rose. Now, I happen to media train people who are single, who want to get better at dating. And I happen to be media training someone who serves the White House and the current administration. And this tip is true for everybody across the board. And it is this: if you have to take a deep breath when you are talking, try putting a period there, because chances are you've already said what you need to say. Chances are you've already answered the question. But what happens when we do keynotes and there's a Q&A, or a panel and there's a Q&A, or even the moderator asked a question, or you're on a podcast or on a live anchor set and the host asks you a question? What happens sometimes is we go in the file cabinet in our brain to pull out the file that has the answer we're looking for. And we're looking in the document to get the line that we're hoping to say out loud and be really eloquent reciting. And while we're doing that exercise, we're also thinking, I think this was the question. I hope I'm giving them what they wanted. I don't remember where I was taking this, but I have to stop talking at some point. But I'm going to keep going just to make sure that I land potentially on the thing that I started to try to convey at some point in time. But if you put a period where those big breaths are living, chances are you can get out of your answers faster. And what will happen in that case is, if you're single on a date, you won't overshare so much. If you are in a press conference and you're thrown off, you won't over answer. And if you're in a live interview, you'll cover more ground. So the next time you see a bunch of Rambling Roses in Trader Joe's or Publix or Gelson's or ShopRite, wherever you live, I want you to think of this night that we're spending together and remind yourself that you have a lot to say, but you don't have to say it all at once. And then here is the number one thing that people leave an interview with kicking themselves over. It's not if they stumbled on a word. It's not if they froze for a second and they had to just kind of regroup on the spot. They kick themselves over leaving airtime on the table. And what I mean by that is a lot of interviews, podcast, newspaper reporter, radio, broadcast, doesn't matter. A lot of the times the person will say, okay, Sean, in the 10 seconds we have left, is there anything you want to add that we didn't ask you? And for the Seans in the world who say, yes, our new website is live. And for the first 100 people who register for our upcoming webinar, you are going to get a free t-shirt sent to you. Sean has checked that box. But for the people who say, no, we're good. These are the people who, when they first come to me and I watch their segments with them, I say, oh my goodness, you could have plugged anything. So always make sure, no matter what opportunity you're doing, you never know when the person's going to say, okay, so Anne, what's next for you? What's coming up for your company this year? Anything along those lines is sacred space for you to just snatch and be able to promote anything that you would like to promote. And when you're not doing a live interview, or even if you are doing a live interview for that matter, and you get this question and there's nothing that you want to plug per se, but you feel like you could have answered an earlier question better, this is a great time to say, in the last 10 seconds we've left, I just want to remind everybody that foot health matters. And the number one reason why is because boom. And now you've sort of recalibrated the whole thing to make sure that you've gotten the one thing across that you wanted to get across. So start with your gotcha questions to boost your camera confidence. If you go on and on, try putting a period where you're taking those big deep breaths and know what to plug. Okay, so now how to talk in sound bites. Again, this is great if you're talking with a patient. It's great if you're talking with an investor. It's great if you're talking to a potential brand that you want to partner with. If you feel like you can be a runaway train, the best thing to do to get yourself going is just repeat the question. So in the situation where someone might say to me, Jessica, tell us about your online course, I would say, my online course is designed for people who XYZ. And no, you don't need to do that for every single answer, because you can imagine it would sound a little silly if someone interviewed me and said, tell me about your course. And I said, my course, blah, blah, blah. Why did you start it? I started it because. Who is it for? It is for. I mean, after a little while, it does feel a little robotic and stiff. So it really is just more to get you going, because a lot of times people stumble on that first question and then they find their rhythm. And if you are someone who feels like they need a little extra support to get you going, repeating the question is a great thing for you to lean on. Like anything else, we want to keep it simple, because again, instead of feeling like you need to boil the ocean, if you just connect with those really important nuggets that you're trying to convey, you're going to leave more time to have a really authentic conversation with the press or with that moderator on a panel, and be able to maximize the amount of ground that you can cover, which is really why you're doing the interview in the first place. When you go back to that very first question where we started with tonight, you're doing it to advance your career, but you're in this career to help other people, and you can help more people with more content if you don't take the entire 3 to 5 minute interview just explaining to people your answer to question number 1. Last but not least, when it comes to talking in sound bites and being someone who sounds really polished, listen for your filler words. Do you say, like, so, you know, really? That's a great question. These sort of things eat up valuable airtime that you can be putting in better content. So a great way to get rid of filler words is to first identify that you say them. We all say them from time to time, but there are people who say them every other word. There are people who say them in between every sentence before the next thought. See if you can identify where you throw in your filler words. And if you can, take those really basic questions that you're most likely to be asked in an interview. What do you do? Why do you do it? How do you help people? What do we need to know about foot health? What are some common issues people have with foot health? What are signs that you need to see a doctor? All of these kinds of things. And record yourself and then play it back. And if you hear yourself with those filler words, the more you hear them, the less likely you are to say them. So don't be afraid if you do it. We all do, but this is a great way for you to start eliminating them. Practice makes better. So recording yourself not only helps you find out where you stick those filler words, but it also lets you know if you're sitting in a swivel chair, do you swivel the whole time? This is the commandment I tell everyone. If thy is in a swivel chair, thy will swivel. So I'm actually in a swivel chair now, which I realized a little bit ago, but I cross my ankles to make sure that my chair stays put, because otherwise it's really easy when you're thinking about an answer to go like this, or, to move and go all over the place. And if you're on CNN, you don't want to do that. So if you can replace the chair, replace the chair. If you can't replace the chair, cross your ankles and you will have a much easier time staying put. Rehearsing with other people is a really great tactic to help yourself get better and become more confident doing media interviews, or just speaking with patients, frankly, doing those telehealth calls, or anybody else on your team. So the way to get more confident at just being better at these conversations is to practice with other people. And if you have young people in your life, they will be brutally honest with you. But if you're getting ready for a presentation and a young person cannot repeat back to you what you just said to them, then you're not putting your content in the best format, especially when it comes to media. If you are talking at a conference for podiatrists, this is a different story. I'm talking to people who may be at your local church or the Chamber of Commerce or your child's school. You want to make sure that what you say lands, and the best way to know if it lands is to talk to people who don't do what you do for a living. And then finally, get distracted. If you have an Alexa machine, keep Alexa plugged in. If you have your phone on, keep the ringer on. If your kids are watching TV, if you have a pet, let it be a circus, because when you're live, things happen. And not that long ago, I had a client who didn't turn off their watch. So when they said something, Siri said, I don't understand that. Can you repeat that? Another client had an Alexa machine that he didn't realize he didn't turn off. And again, it went off with something. You just don't want anything to ruffle your feathers. At the same time, all of those sounds that you can control, you want to make sure that your watch is off or you don't wear it. You want to make sure if your Alexa machine is plugged in and you're doing a local TV station interview and you're live, unplug it before, things like that. So that this way you aren't disturbed, but if you are disturbed from practicing with keeping things on around you, you are someone who will not get flustered and the show will go on. And that's really what we want. We want you to feel really good about how you say what you say. And we really want you to feel really good about what you say in the first place. But all of these things come together, and they come together by putting some of these tips into place. When we talk about setting up your shot for a telehealth call, for a brand partnership call, for a Zoom meeting with colleagues that maybe you're in a networking group with, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a local TV situation. You just want to make sure that you're putting yourself in the best light every time. And I mean that literally. So the lighting should always be on your face. And if you have a window, your nose should be facing the window. Your face should be facing the window, not the other way around. Most people make the mistake of sitting in front of the window. So if you imagine the painting behind me was a window instead, that is going to make it look like you are coming to your audience from a cave. And we don't want that. If you also can go on Amazon and get yourself a laptop stand of any sort, or get a bunch of books in your house to rest your laptop on, you are ensuring that you are eye level with your camera. So throughout this whole presentation, if you've been looking at me in that little tile, you might see that I've been making eye contact with you the whole time. And that's because I'm speaking directly to the green dot. You want to make sure that you have that eye contact, so it makes it feel for the other person like you are talking to them directly and that you are engaged with them at all times. Now, I understand it's more natural to look at your slides. There are some devices that the camera's in the corner. So if you're looking like this the whole time, it breaks up the connection that you have with your audience. And That's not what we're going for. So make sure that you practice on your device, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's your laptop, whether it's a desktop, know where your camera is, stack your laptop on a bunch of books if need be, get a laptop stand if you can, make sure you have that eye level strong, and make sure you know where you're doing the interview that you have planned for the podcast or other things. I can't tell you how many times construction has started at the apartment next door or at the office next door. You just want to make sure you have a couple of options if things don't go as planned for you to set yourself up and be set up for success. So when it comes to lights, if the light is on your face, you're in the right place. Camera, be eye level as best as you can so that it feels to the folks that you're talking with that you are talking with them directly. And lights, camera, action, make sure you know in your home or in your office, in your kitchen, in your co-working space, where do you plan on doing this interview from so you can set yourself up for success. Okay. This is how to stay in touch with me. I'm Jessica Abo TV on Instagram. If I talked about something today that you're just like, oh, I wish we could spend more time on that, shoot me an email at hello@jessicaabo.com. I run boot camps all year round that are 6 weeks long, and we take all of the content I did today and a whole lot more, and people get to workshop their content every week. Happy to chat with you if you think that is something that is interesting or sounds like fun. We do have a lot of fun, I must say. And I'm happy to spend the rest of the time that we have answering some questions or just doing a talk back with Ann and Sean and Sarah to make sure that we are getting all of the content that we can cover today in our time together. So thanks for letting me fly through that, because I know it's throwing a lot of spaghetti on the wall. And if one thing sticks for you today, that's awesome, because that one thing might be the difference between you seeing a story that you think you could be a part of and seeing a story, knowing how to be a part of it and going for it and getting a yes and doing an awesome job and becoming the person that anytime a foot related story comes into play, you become the person that they think about and go to, which is really what we want for you and your business. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, bring back in the team, let them take it away. And the floor is back to you, Sarah.
I always double mute myself. So I have to go through all my buttons. Well, we don't have a ton of questions coming in, so I do want to just give everybody an opportunity to take this moment and use your Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We do want, I just want to make sure that you see this, Jessica. We have one of our physicians say, just have to say, this is in all caps, this is all such fabulous information. I'm giddy excited. Ashley, Carolina foot and ankle specialist in Charleston, South Carolina. So that's close to you, Ann.
It's just down the road.
As you can see, I am a vampire. It's not close to me. I live in Illinois.
I love that. And I also am seeing, I'm going to screenshot this because we love to have we can all smile and do a screenshot. I'm sure even better at the end. But thanks, Ashley, for that. And Peter, I'm sorry. I'm happy to send you the QR code, or what I can do is send it to the team. And when they send the video link, send a link out for you to download the PR calendar. But, the more you highlight and circle and put it on your daily planner, those dates that are coming up, the higher chances you are of getting the story before someone else. So thanks so much for asking about that link. We'll definitely make sure that the team sends it and shares it with you so you can consider it as part of your marketing plan.
Awesome.
I was looking at your PR calendar, and April 23rd is National Email Day.
Ooh.
Does that mean that we're supposed to not email, or email to
The absence
You're
of
supposed
to
to
the end of the
double down
world?
Maybe for this group, why your email should be about foot health, like if you're going to read only one email today, why it should be about your feet. So,
Yeah.
or maybe it's, take a break from your phone, put your feet up, and I don't know, call your foot doctor and schedule that appointment.
One thing I wanted to just touch on really quick, since we have Sean here with Blue Orchid Marketing. Obviously, I was jotting down some notes as well. And Sean, I was hoping that maybe you could chime in as to where Blue Orchid would come into play here when somebody does have an opportunity for a story, and they have nailed it. They've gone through all of Jessica's steps. They have the content, it's ready to roll. What is Blue Orchid's role in taking that forward through the channels for podiatrists that are on the line right now?
Sure,
Line.
good question. Thanks, Sarah. Obviously, social media plays a big part in your own self-promotion and in promoting your practice. So for many of our clients that we're actually, maintaining social media accounts for, we're constantly asking our clients for any kind of personal content, anything that they're willing to record, to put on their website, to add to their social media channels, that then we can shout from the rooftops. We're able to embed video in our email marketing campaigns. We certainly can obviously, facilitate that and share out on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and your other social media channels. I wanted to actually ask, and obviously we help pitch those angles as well. In fact, we have a client in New Hampshire right now who we put together a special program for Mother's Day. They have a Medi Spa that we put together, a mother and daughter aromatherapy kind of pedicure. You hear my uhs making me insecure now. We put together a program where basically we're pitching that to local outlets. We have a few different of the local papers and radio stations that have basically, raised their hands and are willing to help us amplify that message and put this medical spa out into the spotlight for a Mother's Day event that's coming up in, a month or so. So that's just one small example of how we might help craft a message, help you pitch a message, and then ultimately connect you to a media outlet for earned media, which is really, the best way, I think, to promote your services.
And I like what you said about, just mostly that you tapped on a specific holiday, because I think one of the things that I have noticed in the profession, and I mean, I'm guilty of it myself because we get so busy every single day, is planning ahead. Like, obviously we know that April is Foot Health Awareness Month, and I always ask from January until March 31st, he's like, have you been using these 90 days to get ready for these 30 days? And most of the time the answer is no. And it's every year, it's just another missed opportunity. So what the point I'm making right now is it's April. And I mean, we've got juvenile diabetes. I know November is Diabetes Awareness Month. I'm wondering if there is a specific juvenile diabetes month, but anyhow, that's November. So we've got a solid amount of time to get ready for that. And that's just one day, 1 month off the top of my head, because obviously diabetes is impacting podiatry heavily. So just keep that in mind, that now is the time to start thinking about these opportunities where you can put yourself into local community health fairs and create a buzz for yourself. I was actually writing all day, every day, I think of content for the next month's newsletter. And I had emailed myself right before this that said, keep your eyes open for opportunities, because we have this summer, it's a best ball golf tournament. And one of my clients he provides lasers to podiatrists. And how amazing would it be if a podiatrist was at that best ball events, like one of the biggest events of the year in our community, to do quick 5-minute laser treatments on each golfer's foot. So these are opportunities in your own community that you can become a part of and then gain media acknowledgement.
I just want to jump in real quickly because I love everything that you just added. And a big part of getting press is what happens after. So a lot of people think, I'm going to go on the Today Show and I'll sell 1 million books. That definitely could happen for sure. But really what you do with the clip after is huge. So someone like Sean might say, this is a great thing to screenshot and buy ads around to boost SEO. It could be, refurbishing content for social media like he shared. It could be the here are the behind the scenes of my time on Good Day LA for a newsletter. So just thinking about how you plan on using that clip for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months really maximizes the whole opportunity, because now it just isn't about 15 seconds of fame and letting that die on the vine. It's really like putting it into play into your marketing plan so that people can see it. And Sean, I'm sure you actually know these statistics better than I do, but I always was told that 20% of your community actually sees what you post. So you might think like, oh, I just posted that on Monday, or I posted that last month. You might think that you're posting the same stuff over and over and over again, and you might feel sick of it, but there's a good chance that the majority of your audience hasn't seen it yet.
Well, and I like to comment on the same, I phrase it as milking your marketing. And I actually wrote a note because in March's newsletter, so we, last day of the month, it always comes out. So on the 31st, I had written an article about verbal pauses. And I'm going to take the, what I call them verbal pause, you get filler words. And I was like, I'm going to take that little clip from this recording and post it next to my newsletter article on, because then I will post them into Facebook as little micro blogs after the giant newsletter comes out. So I'm like, perfect. That's an opportunity to milk that with something that I've added to it. So it's not just copy paste. It's here's what I said. And Jessica said it too. So it must be true.
Yeah, I love that.
I appreciated how you said when you find yourself having to take a breath while talking, use that as a period, because, we're all public speakers in some form or another, speaking to patients, speaking to our staff members, speaking on webinars like this. And we do it, even if it's something we've said 1,000 times, you rush through it and then you're like, and it's like, okay, just put a period there. You've said what you need to say, just end it.
Awesome.
Jessica, I liked what you said about practicing in general, and we always encourage our clients, especially since an iPhone is so inexpensive now. Well, it's actually not that inexpensive, but we all have them, to practice in front of your phone, to practice with a practice manager or a front desk staff person, anyone who can enjoy holding a camera in front of you, speak in a quick soundbite, and see what comes of it. And if it doesn't work, cut it and do it 10 more times. And by the 10th time, I assure you, it will be smoother. Everyone is an actor at that point.
It's so true. It all comes down to muscle memory. And when I hired a publicist for myself, when my book came out, I was equally as nervous as the next person, even though I was on the other side of the camera for 2 decades. And I walked around my house prepping for Good Morning America, talking into my phone, listening back to the answer. When I did the Good Morning America one, also, that didn't happen overnight. My book came out and we pitched, we got a yes from the Today Show. It took me 3 years to get the Good Morning America one. And when they said yes, it took 7 months from the time they said yes to actually make the interview happen. So I just also want to throw that out there, that I think a lot of people hire a publicist, or they work with someone like you, Sean, and they think like, oh, you sent out a pitch. Why aren't you getting 7,000 yeses? I'm media trained and ready to go. But sometimes it can be a quick win, and other times it can be a marathon, not a sprint. And that's how I would practice. And for Good Morning America, I set my computer up at the time of day that I was doing the interview, so I could see the lighting coming in through the window. I could set up my ring light. I went through the motions to make sure that my book wasn't so far away behind me that you couldn't see the title of my book. Like, I didn't just sit down that day and wing it. I really was prepared. And to your point, like, that's really when you get to build up those muscles of confidence and memory. because it's not your first rodeo by the time you sit down to do the thing. And a lot of people ask me, well, when do I need media training? Because don't I need media training once I have a publicist or once I'm pitching myself and I get a yes? Or don't I need media training once I've had 1 million patients, or I've sold my practice for $1 million, or I have 1 million followers on TikTok? And to Ann's point, you are public speaking every single day. Why not be the best version at it possible? And to me, that only benefits every other aspect of your world. And when you do get those big yeses and you do celebrate those big wins, you will have material that you actually can market because you feel really good about it. So just a lot of food for thought.
We did have a couple of questions come in. Can you share some tips on how to get to know your audience before a presentation? Little audience
Sure.
analysis.
So when I go around and I'm giving a keynote, what I always like to do is if there's a reception the night before, a gala the night before, I always go. This is where I get to walk around the hotel lobby, walk around the actual event, say hi to people, tell them I'm speaking the next day, and get a sense of why they came. Sometimes I take a selfie with them and I ask them if I can incorporate them into my presentation. So when I do the thing the next day, I say things like, so if you're Dr. Sean Zakin, Sean, where are you? Yeah, Sean, hey, from Northwestern. Good to see you, man. This is Sean. Do you know about Sean's book? It's coming out. So I actually just work the room because I genuinely care about giving these people my all. And in order to give them my all, I need to better understand why they're there and what they need. And that's why I don't have a cookie cutter speech. I take out this slide, I throw in this slide, I read the room. So a great way to know your audience when you can is to spend time with them. Another way is to speak with your event organizers or the co-chairs and ask them from a real, like, bottom of the barrel level. Why are these people coming? Do they need to get CME credit? Do they need to appease their boss? Do they need to just sort of like rub shoulders with people in the industry? Like, why are they there? And then when you figure out what they're looking for, the best way to connect with them is to give them what they want. And I think then you'll have like this unbelievable relationship with the people there, and they'll feel like you really get them. And at the end of the day, like, you really do want to get them. It's why you're giving your time in the first place.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think that comes down to choose. A lot of times you choose the events that you want to speak at that is appropriate for your specific practice. So if you guys have been on a Practice Partner Academy, you know I'm obsessed with niching. And if you have a niche practice, so like my laser example, if you're going to be drumming up some excitement because you're giving free laser treatments at a best ball golf tournament, it's unlikely you're going to be speaking at a diabetic wound health fair if you've niched your practice correctly. So a lot of times, if you'll know the audience based on, like Jessica said, their audience, if your audience is aligned, that should come out pretty easily for you because those are the types of patients that you see on a daily basis.
Yeah, exactly. And that ties in so beautifully, Sarah, with why do you want press and what do you want that piece of press to do? Why are you speaking at this conference and what do you want that keynote to do? It really is marrying those two things so that this way you're not just left with this nice magazine article that you're like, yay, you have something that makes sense for your overall goals for the health of your business. I also see, Michelle, you asked, is the audience turned off by the presenter sharing recent accomplishments and awards, et cetera? Or does this information make the audience more excited to hear what you have to say? So that information, if you can, I would give to the person introducing you. So if there was something today, like Jessica was just featured in the Wall Street Journal, for example, I wouldn't sit here and be like, hey, everybody, I just wasn't featured in the Wall Street Journal. Like, look at me. I would say, hey, Sean, I'm so excited by this tidbit. Here is my speaker intro. Now, Sean and I go back a really long time. So I was as excited to hear his intro as all of you were, or maybe more excited than all of you, because you're like, who's this girl, Jessica? But really a great event has a great MC, or the person who is introducing you is going to be great at doing intros. And something that you can ask as a speaker And something that's really important to keep in mind is you are building a connection with the audience, not when you step foot on stage. It's when the person introducing you starts their introduction. So build out an introduction that you are proud of, that will make the audience really connect with you. Getting back to your other question about how do you get to know an audience, I want you to also think about how does the audience get to know you? And if you leave it up to the organizer to print out your bio, there's a good chance they're going to find something from 2007. And you're like, I have not had that title in a really long time. Like, how the F did they get that bio about me? So that's something that you need to be thinking about. Have a killer bio, a killer introduction that they read on your behalf that is like not standard, like reading text from an encyclopedia, because that's boring. So have a killer introduction that makes the audience already jazzed about you being there. And then that's another thing to solidify that relationship.
That's a really good tip, because Sarah and I organize conferences, and that's pretty much my main role. And I'm constantly asking people to send me a brief bio that I will use for marketing purposes. I add that for marketing purposes so that it clues them in. This is not just so that I can prove that you're qualified to speak at my event. I'm actually going to copy and paste what you give me. And people send me bullet points. Graduated from Barry University in 1994. Attended residency at such and such 1999. I'm like, this
Yeah,
is
I
not
don't wanna
interesting
say-
to anyone. No one cares about this stuff.
I tell you.
CVs is not the most fun.
It's hard, but you know what? Listen, we can't be all of the things, right? So I have a team to help me, because if you download my PR calendar, I'm not the one who designed it. I didn't make it look awesome. That's not what I do. I'm like Canva, social media, like it's not my thing. I would rather be in the weeds of you and your practice all day long. And you can't be good at everything. And I'm not going to school anytime soon to be a podiatrist. So like own your zone of genius and then get fillers in the places where you need the help. Use Sean when it comes to marketing. Find a VA when it comes to, doing the tidbits of whatever else a VA can do to help you, focus on the things that are most meaningful for you and really light you up. Because it really is a big machine these days, all of the aspects of the things that we do. We don't just do our job anymore. We do our job. We post about our job. We are trying to tell other people about our job. We're also trying to help other people, get the support that they need, whether it's our children, our spouse, our parents, siblings, whatever. Like, we are in high demand. So I would say also don't feel bad about it all being overwhelming. It is a lot, but it's no different than anything else. We learned in journalism school, Sean, that the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And that's like true for everything in life. So just own how you are amazing and how you are helping people every single day, and where you need that extra support for people to help you. All of us, on this call, we are part of that village of just wanting to see you do the thing you love and have more people know about the thing that you do.
I love all that.
Me
If I
too.
could just leave you with one final thought, it's to try to encourage everyone to think outside the box, to be creative, to consider how you might be unique and stand out among your colleagues. There's certainly competition all across the country now, but I assure you that each and every one of you has a special, unique angle, a story to play up. And we can obviously help you amplify or craft those stories and those messages. But to really think about, how am I different? How have I done things for the past 20 years? Perhaps I should be thinking differently now. My website doesn't need to look like everyone else's. My practice service tiles don't need to be as similar to, who's doing what across the way, or my colleagues from school or otherwise. I really, really encourage you to think about doing things differently, leading with your personality, and just being yourself, enjoying being different and creative.
So Sean, what's next for Blue Orchid? Where will we see you on the road? What do you guys have going on? What's up?
We've got a whole bunch of conferences coming up. I'm writing a few more articles for Podiatry Management. We're obviously going to be planning a whole bunch of additional webinars like these, trying to really do things differently. We're creating websites that I think are fairly unique and different in the space. Everyone on the conference circuit reminds me how slow to evolve podiatry is. Oh, that's just the way that it's done. Oh, well, that's just the way that my practice looks. That's how it's always been. Our competitors do the same thing year in and year out. We're just looking to shake things up and be different. So I'm constantly looking for ways to innovate, to invest in new technology, and treat each client as an individual and not like a mass, carbon copy of one another.
Love that. Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate everything so much. I've taken a million notes. Every time we do something like this, I overwhelm myself. And so it's good that it's only an hour. Otherwise, my head might explode. So, but thank you so much, Jessica. It was a pleasure to meet you. Sean, always a pleasure. And I love the message that you are putting forward for Blue Orchid with that personal touch. And I just think it's so important because, as I mentioned earlier, it's just the content has to come. We can't put the cart before the horse. And I just love that you're really focusing on knowing the clients that you work with and making sure that their personalities and their uniqueness shine through. So I look forward to the next few webinars throughout the rest of the year with Practice Partner Academy and Blue Orchid Marketing. Jessica, would love to see you again as well. Thank you so much. And did you have anything else before we sign off?
That's all I got. I'm going to bed now.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Sean, so much. Again, we'll have this up on our website, hopefully in the next few days. And hopefully tomorrow, but I don't like to make promises I can't keep. So it will be
Under promise, over deliver.
That's right. Words to live by. Good night, everybody.
Thank you again, Jessica. You're the best.
Thanks for having me.
you.
Bye.
Bye.